You're listening to the Ink and Paint Girls podcast, a look at animation through the women who make it. Today's guest is author, illustrator, and animator Mary Bellamy. With over 14 graphic novels and 1,000 comic pages under her belt, Mary is the epitome of a self-made independent publisher with her titles such as Faux Facts and Ah. This drive to produce a huge body of work has brought Marvel and My Little Pony knocking on her metaphorical door. We discuss how she boiled her creative process down to a science, how she was tired of typical girl tropes and stories, so she created her own graphic novels to show what she wished she could have read when she was growing up. And she also shares how she uses her own pain to create honest and authentic work in hopes of connecting with others so they know to keep hope alive. So grab a beverage of your choice, sketch while you listen if you like, and enjoy.
So hi, my name is Mary Bellamy. I'm an animator, a comic book artist, and an illustrator. I work out of my studio in Los Angeles. When I'm not creating pro-girl graphic novels in my own toy line, I'm rescuing cats and gluten-free baking.
Oh, whoa. That's way more than I knew.
Yeah.
What is your origin story? Like, what drew you to visual storytelling?
Ever since I was a kid, like the TV, the toys, the comic books, you turned on the Saturday morning cartoons. It was Strawberry Shortcake. It was My Little Pony. I'm dating myself. But it was Moon Dreamers. It was Glowworm. It was all these colorful characters, and I just loved it. It was just something about it. It drew you into the imaginary because as a child, like a lot of people have easy lives, mine was kind of harder. So I went into this world of wanting to create happy places and fun characters and fun stories. So I just knew that I had to be involved somehow with animation or comics. In high school, I got kind of drafted into doing all the t-shirt designs because you're the artist, you draw the t-shirts, and I did a little strip for the school newspaper. In college, I wasn't sure because I was really an academic kid. I was like a 4.67 GPA. I have super high grades, but I was like, well, this doesn't really make me happy though. So I went into graphic design and I started to do some stuff and working independently. And then I said, you know what? Animation is really what I want to do. I don't want to design logos and I don't want to do this kind of stuff. It's a great skill to have. I mean, I always like to have more than one skill. And then I went back to school and I studied animation, and unfortunately, at that point, I discovered that I had a severe illness, came out of nowhere, had surgery, wound up in the hospital, and then I wound up in a wheelchair for a couple of years, so then I ended up just thinking, oh, God, how am I going to rebound? I can't get to studios, I can't go to places, I can't do stuff. Comics. I'd been involved in anthologies and illustration work, so I started developing my own universes like Faux Facts and Ah and Cosmic Cupcake and things like that. And then I just said, you know what? From that point, I just started showing my stuff. I got invited to do licensed artwork. I was at San Diego Comic-Con. I've been there for a decade. I just wanted to make stuff for girls. It wasn't about princesses. It was about girls doing things, actually being active, and being just as cool as the boys were without having to focus on guys.
Yeah, it seems like you were really ahead of the curve in that way when, like, TV and the media wasn't really... They were giving us princesses, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of pushback there, a lot of places, and I can understand because they're there to make money, but there was the resistance like, but if it's not a princess, will it sell? Will girls buy it? Will anybody want it? We know that princesses have sold in the past, and they've had a few things that were kind of different, like, Gosselin and Darkwing Duck. She was not a princess. She was a tomboy with a hockey stick, and she was out there. And you had Gadget on the Rescue Rangers. She was a science kind of STEM character, and that was kind of cool. And Penny from Inspector Gadget was always intelligent, witty, using her mind. And I just said, you know what? I want to make what I want to see. And I wasn't seeing it. So when I went to Comic-Con, I was so grateful for how receptive the girls were. They were like happy when I say, hey, get your comic book, but it's not about princesses. They would stop, turn around, and run to my table. And it was just great because that's what I really wanted to inspire in girls, that, hey, you too can have a wide range of stories. Even if maybe some of the companies don't see it right now. Things are changing, and I'm glad. It's just, can we go a little more is what I'd like to see. Is I think that if girls have as many options as boys do, then we'd be doing really good.
One piece that you mentioned was you ended up in a wheelchair because of a disease. I'm wondering, and not to dwell on it, I'm wondering how you keep positive and like, were you pretty active in making the decision to like, okay, what do I control? I'm going to do comics. Like, how do you keep yourself from kind of wallowing?
I tell you, it's not easy because you're like, my body won't do what I want it to do. I can't breathe. I'm dizzy. I'm fainting. I was bedridden for 3 months. I couldn't do anything. And I was miserable because if I don't at least draw at least a few times a day or a week, I was losing. I said, I've got to do something. Reading other people's stuff, watching TV just wasn't enough. So even if I could just scribble ideas for stories, doodle on papers, and they looked really bad at that time. So I'm like, I actually put a comparison image online of how that particular period looks versus now. But I just had to say, I said, this is all I have. This is all I have, so I'm going to put everything into it because that's what I got to do. If you don't focus on something, it's so easy to just spiral.
You know, you've been at Comic-Con for many, many years now as well. And like, are you basically grandfathered in now?
No, we actually get juried in every year. I found that I got in because when I first started, there was only one female-led comic book, and it was a little racy and not very appropriate, but it was marketed to like younger teen girls, and I thought, this is kind of gross. So I submitted, and it was like I filled a niche that nobody else had. And so every year we have to create a new book. So I have like 14 graphic novels now.
That's amazing.
So I just wanted to keep doing it and keep doing it. And there's slowly being more and more female like lead characters, so I'm grateful for that. But when I started out, it was like, hey, you're a unicorn. So you might as well shine and sparkle because there's nobody else to shine with you.
Do you think you had been making books if you didn't have that like annual deadline?
It's hard to say. I think it really drives me to do it because I want to keep going and I don't want to let it lapse. But I think I would have still done it. I've drawn over 1,500 and something odd pages. I was doing the annual anthologies before. And the problem with anthologies is people, if they don't sell, your stuff never continues. So you don't get to finish your story. And now with print on demand, we're more able to control it. If you're lucky enough to have a large enough fan base, it goes online, you can kickstart it, and you can get a whole book made. I just can't see myself not making a book. I mean, at this point, I think I want to do a Kickstarter to compile them before I go on and do any more series.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
What a nice collector's edition that would be.
Yeah, because I just did a Kickstarter for enamel pins because I'm like, well, maybe somebody might like this. And I was lucky. I funded in 3 days and got a stretch goal. And I'm like, yay.
That's
So I'm
amazing.
being crazy. And
Congratulations.
thanks. I'm being crazy and doing another one on the 25th. So fingers crossed. Because after
Nice.
that, I'm hoping to do toys and books.
Wow.
So.
Really stretching that resume now.
Oh, yeah. My
Or that
resume is
portfolio.
my resume is so eclectic. They're like, what have you done? I said, I've done everything. I've done sketch cards for Marvel and DC. I've done animation, comics, and all of it.
Yeah. Can we talk about that? Because you have so many outlets that you've created for yourself. Like when you're going to like get work at like studios or from other people who need help, like how do you kind of be like, I can do this thing for you when you have so many things? You know what I mean? Because like in the studios, they're definitely like,
yeah.
I want a niche. Like,
Yeah.
what can I use you for?
So what I do is I try to look at what they're making and I try to show them the kind of stuff that I do. I say, like a lot of sketch card companies. So I'm not going to really get into, I did kids books in London and I've done toys and stuff. I said, I've worked at Upper Deck, I've worked at Tops, I've worked at Rittenhouse, and then I'll show them those type of things. I've done other licensed properties like, say, My Little Pony, because sketch cards are all about licensed properties. So I just did a Rick and Morty set. So they're like, can you match this style? And you show them, hey, I can match the style. I did My Little Pony. Can you match Marvel? I said, here's my interpretation of Marvel. And so I kind of just have to target what they want to see without bombarding them with like a 10-page resume of how many different things I've done. I'm like, by the way, I noticed you have a toy line. If you ever need designs for that, I do this. So try to just specifically wedge it in there.
Nice. Where do you find opportunities? Is it like because you go to cons? Is that how you kind of get yourself out there? Or how do you do it now?
It's been a weird kind of hodgepodge. Like with My Little Pony, I went to a convention. I went to the editor and I said, here's my portfolio. And I did some he's like, well, okay, you got some really nice stuff. Can you send me some samples? So I drew some samples, some comic pages, some cover ideas. I sent it to him. Didn't hear anything. A year later, hey, so I have an opening for a cover. You want to do a cover? I'm like, let me think about that. Yes.